bearing with us for being a few minutes late today. Welcome everyone to our Find Your Ancestors session for today. I'm Katie Stolp. I'm the local history librarian here at Appleton Public Library in Appleton, Wisconsin. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our webinar on Czech archives. Before we dive in, I just have a couple quick announcements. First, a huge thank you to the Friends of the Appleton Public Library for providing funding for our Find Your Ancestors series and allowing us to continue bringing amazing speakers every month. We couldn't do this without their support. For those unfamiliar with our Find Your Ancestors series, we do this once a month, every month. So definitely check out the handout. I posted a link in the chat, and I'll post it throughout our session today. So you can download that handout. And on that front page of the handout has some links for our upcoming Find Your Ancestors programs. So our next Find Your Ancestors session is going to be October 8th at 2 p.m. Central, and it's going to be on identifying and interpreting historic photos. So if you are one of those people who inherited that random box of photos from your family, this webinar is for you. So be sure to register for that for October 8th for next month. In November, we're going to be talking about researching Native American ancestors, and then we'll wrap up the year with a big DNA workshop in December, where we're going to have 2 back-to-back sessions on DNA. I'm working on getting our 2023 lineup set, and we're going to announce those dates and topics for the first few months of 2023 very soon. Later this month, we're also going to be having a virtual historic architecture walking tour in Appleton, or if you don't live in Appleton, you can attend the virtual one. Our in-person walks, unfortunately, are all filled up for our spots, but you're still able to join us virtually. And that session is going to be on September 19th, and there is also a link in the handout to register for that if you're interested. Just a reminder, even if you register for our upcoming programs, you will get a reminder email 1 week, 1 day, and 1 hour before the programs with the information on joining the program. If you missed any of our past Find Your Ancestors sessions, definitely check out our YouTube channel. There is a link in the handout to that YouTube channel. Of course, we don't record every presentation, or all the presentations aren't up there indefinitely. So consider attending live if you're able to, or definitely be sure to register, and we'll send a link to the handout and the recording if there is one. If you missed our awesome August session on Fold 3, you definitely want to watch the replay of that on our YouTube channel before next Sunday, before it gets taken down forever. So if you missed out on that, you have about a week to watch it. We are recording today's session, and we'll send out a link to the video and the handout again to everyone in a few days. If you have any questions during today's session, you can use the Q&A box that's located on the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer questions at the end. Closed captioning is also enabled if you need it. You're able to push the button at the bottom of your screen. Just be aware that they're not 100% accurate since it's a live transcript. If you have any library-specific questions or need help navigating any of our library's genealogy databases, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is in the handout, and I also offer hour-long one-on-one sessions via Zoom to help with genealogy questions or showing you our genealogy databases. So definitely feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in those. Finally, at the end of today's presentation, there's going to be a short survey from Project Outcome, which is an American Library Association sponsored initiative. If you could just take a minute to fill it out, it's a really short 8-question survey. It just gives us feedback and let us know what you thought of today's presentation. And there's also a spot on the survey at the end to let us know what topics you're interested in, which is really helpful when I'm trying to find speakers for the next series. So without further ado, I can introduce our speakers today. Today we have 3 members from the group Sokol Milwaukee. We have Susan Chapman, Ann Kramer, and Don Skarda. Sokol Milwaukee hosts informal genealogy sessions via Zoom about 6 times a year. And the members that we have with us today, Susan Chapman has several years of genealogy research experience, and she's a member of the Czechoslovakia Genealogical International Society, the German Bohemian Heritage Society, and Milwaukee County Genealogical Society. We also have Ann Kramer. She's of 100% Czech heritage, and she has worked on the Czech genealogy of her 4 grandparents and is familiar with the Czech regional archives and has a working knowledge of Czech culture, history, and language, and has visited the Czech Republic several times, including just recently. And then finally, we have Don Skarda, who is a Czech descendant and the technical resource person for Sokol Milwaukee and other groups. So let's welcome our speakers today and get started learning about some Czech archives. All right, you guys can take it away.
Good afternoon.
You have to make sure you're muted on the other accounts. You guys are all signed in. So one of them has to be muted and then the other one will be fine and then we won't get an echo. There we go.
Good afternoon. Good. My name is Ann Kramer, and I'm blown away with the number of people that are interested in learning about the Czech archives. Welcome to our session. Sue and Don will be joining me in the question and answer portion. Today, we are presenting a great deal of information. The Czech archives are rather confusing, so it could be overwhelming. You have a copy of this PowerPoint and the speaker notes in your email in case you missed something or want to refer to it. This PowerPoint also will be available for you to reference again on YouTube. Also, there will be an extensive list of links and information in the other handout. If you have a question today, jot it down and note the number of the slide in the bottom right-hand corner, and we'll answer it at the end. Our ancestors called themselves by many of these different names, depending on the political circumstances at the time they left their home country. Currently, the home country is known as the Czech Republic. Some of the names you might be familiar with are Czech, Bohemian, Austrian, and Moravian. Before exploring foreign records, know the original name of your ancestor, their village in the Czech Republic, their birth year, and their religion. There are 8 main regional archives in the Czech Republic. Each archive is operated independently, so there are different instructions on how to use each archive. This is why it is so confusing. We will be discussing 3 of the archives to give you a taste of their diversity. Usually, to research your family, you will probably be using only 1 or 2 of them. So we have archive number 1, Brno. Number 2, City of Prague. Number 3, Litoměřice. Number 4, Opava. Number 5, Pilsen. Number 6, Prague. Number 7, Trebon. And number 8, Zamość. The links to these archives will be in your handout. Each archive uses their own data management system. We will be demonstrating birth and baptism records on the Prague archive site, marriage records on the Pilsen archive site, and death records on the Zamość archive site. The first step is to locate the parish and archive for your village. To do this, go to the website www.genteam.at, which means Austria. You will need to create a free account with a password and login. On the left-hand side, click on Gazetteer, and this screen is displayed. Under Crown Land, type in either Böhmen for Bohemia or Maren for Moravia. Under Place, begin typing in your village name and some suggestions appear. Select the best one. We are looking for the village of Mąčice. If there's more than one village with the same name, a number of them will appear and you'll have to sort through them until you find the correct one. For more information, select Details, which is next to the place name. Here you will find both the Czech and German names for the village, and the parish, and the archive where the records are kept. For older records, you may need to know the name of the former parish. By selecting the blue archive name, in this case, Prague, it will take you directly to that archive where you can begin searching. In this case, the parish for Mąčice is Uherské Janovice in the Prague archives. So our first search will be for a birth record. Kniha Narození means Book of Births. It is abbreviated with an N in most archives or an asterisk in the Pilsen archives. We are looking for Antonia Vojta, born in 1884 in the parish of Uherské Janovice in the village of Munčice. This is the homepage of the Prague Area Archives. This is the larger area around Prague, not the actual city. Select English on the upper right. Select Register Records. We use by keyword and select in Register Titles. We type in the parish, Uherské Janovice, and press Search. On this page, we have the columns births, marriages, and deaths, and then index books for births, marriages, and deaths. We know the birth year is 1864, so we scroll down the index column to book number 24, which has our village of Munčice and the years 1682 to 1900, and select it. You will notice that not all books are indexed, especially older books. This makes searching much more difficult. Sometimes it results in searching page by page. The index book appears, which is alphabetical. Because the name starts with a V, it is easy to go to the last page of the book and go backwards from Z to V. Other letters will require more trial and error between the pages to find the appropriate letter. On this page, the village is first, the house number is second, and the child's name is third. Parents are next, birth year, birth month, and day of birth. Finally, in the last two columns are the number of the appropriate volume and the page number. Scrolling down, we are looking for Antonia Vojta, January, which is Ledna in Czech, 22, 1864. It is in book 19 on folio page 121. These are the original record book and folio page numbers. When the books were filmed and digitized, the entries were assigned new digital numbers. Therefore, you will have to recognize if you're using the folio numbers or the digital numbers. Information in the church books can be written in Czech, German, or Latin. In the handout, we'll have links to Czech, German, and Latin genealogical word lists that will help you with these words. We then go back to the list of books for the parish and look for the Book of Births for 1864 that contains our village of Munčice. It is in book number 12, which is the new digitized number. Select that book. When that book comes up, select Register Description and confirm under Original Name that it was originally book 19. We are looking for page 121. However, when we type that in, folio page number 119 shows up. So we actually need to go back 2 more pages to find the old folio page of 121. Here we find the folio page 121. There are 2 clips of this page. The top contains the column headings and the bottom clip contains our record. The first column contains the year. Here you see 1863. Down the page, the year had turned to 1864 before our record. The column also includes the month and day, first column birth, and second column christening. For Antonia, her birth was the 22nd day of January, or Ledna in Czech. Baptism was on the 24th. The next column shows the officiant, Maciej Blaha. Next, the name of the child, Antonia. Next are a number of narrow columns: Catholic, non-Catholic, male, female, legitimate, illegitimate, and stillborn. Antonia's record indicates that she is Catholic, female, and legitimate. The next column shows the village and house number. For Antonia, it is Mączyce, house number 23 in the district of Uherske Janowice. Midwife is Zofia Schultz of Janowice. On the next page is the father's information. Father is Wojta Josef, large landowner from Mączyce, number 23, and Barbara, family of Schmid from Mączyce. Next is the mother's information. Mother is Anna, daughter of Jan Čihák, large landowner from Skvernova, district Gorzim, and mother Ludmila, family of Pisha from Skirnova. Finally, the godparents are Kubelki, large landowner, and Jan Ullman, farmer, Mączyce. There are a couple things to be aware of when trying to read a record. As you can see here, there are no rules for hyphenation. The priest simply gets to the end of the box, and if the word is longer, goes to the next line. Examples here are gruntovnik and barbary. Also in the Czech language, word endings indicate how the word is used, whether it is possessive, accusative, nominative, and so on. Therefore, Václava is really Václav, and barbary is Barbara. Gruntovnik and gruntovnica are the same, just used in a sentence in a different way. Finally, you will notice that house numbers are included here. In 1770, Maria Theresa, Empress of Austria, declared that all houses be assigned a house number so that it would be easier to collect taxes. She did genealogists a great service. People very often lived in the same house for generations. Therefore, you can track a family through their house number or even search through a book for the house number. Most villages still use those same old house numbers now. So on Google Maps, street level, you can see the house your relatives were born in as it looks today. Next, we'll move to the Pilsen archive to find a marriage document. This will be in the Kniha Odanych, or Book of Marriages, abbreviated usually by a capital O, or in Pilsen archive by lowercase oo. So say I know that my grandfather was born in Vestenkov in 1854 and have found his birth record, but now I want to find his marriage to Anna. I think he will probably be between 20 to 30 years of age. So I add 20 to 30 years to his birth date of 1854, and I find that maybe he will be married between 1874 to 1884. So I want to find a marriage index that covers those years. This is the homepage for the Pilsen archive. The Pilsen archive is available in only 2 languages, Czech and German, no English. Google Chrome, however, does a great job of translating. Click on the magnifying glass vyhledávání. Another screen appears with the choices of all records, chronicles, photos, maps, etc. The important word in all the archives is matriky, which means registered or the church books. Click on matriky. Fill in this page with archive Pilsen, Nadpis or parish, we have already looked up on GenTeam and is Stankov. Misto for village is Ves Stankov. Tip, select index Odanich, which means marriages, and the date range 1874 to 1884. Then select OK. The information that is on the bottom of the page is what appears. Stankov 33 is the book we want. It lists all the villages included in the book, the date range of the book, the fact that it includes a marriage index, OOI, and a death index, plus I, for that time span. For a description of the book, select the blue Stankov 33. This has some of the same information. However, at the bottom, I see something about marriages, O, appearing first in the book, and deaths, Z, later. So I go back to the book search page and type in 30 and see that that page has the letter Z. So this is the end of the index for marriages, and I need to go backwards to find where the letter S starts. I started at the end of the book to work from the back of the alphabet. If the name you're looking for is more towards the beginning of the alphabet, start with A. So now I see that S starts on page 28. The date starts at 1810. The S at the top of the page is clear. However, the S on the entries looks funny. This is German current rating. The older records use this alphabet, and it may be something you'll need to learn to recognize as you get into older records. However, there's a lot of help available to help you decipher these records. On the sidebar, you can see thumbnails of the pages. Here you can see where one letter ends and the next letter starts. R ends on page 27, and S starts on page 28 and goes through page 31. So we are searching for the group, André Schober. In some books, brides are also listed, but marriages are indexed by groom. We were looking for the years from 1874 to 1884. This clip is a portion of page 30. Each page has two columns. Moving down the years, we see a Jan Schober, but he's from a different village. Finally, in 1880, we find André Schober, 19, October 1880. Some months are in Czech, others in Latin. Village of Stankov, page or folio 17. So now we go back to the search page. Check Matrika Odenich, 1880, and this appears. Only the middle one has Ves Stankov listed as a village, and that is included in that book. Select the magnifying glass to proceed to the record book. The correct book comes up and we go to image page 17. However, that page shows the old folio page number of 16. So we actually need to go one more page to find the old folio page of 17. And here we have our record. It is a double page record. At the top of the page in red, we can see the translation for the different areas. In the first column, we have year, month, and day of marriage. Next is the village and house number for the groom and bride. Then devout priest that officiated. And next the information for the groom and bride, including name, status or occupation, village, house number, and family information. So now we see that this marriage took place on Žena, or October 19th, 1880. The next column is divided into two, with the groom's information first and the bride's down below. The groom lived in the village of Vestenkov, house number 54, district of Horshovsky Tin. The wife in the same village, house number 6. The parson was Jan Sokop. Farar means parson. So the groom's information is Schober. In parentheses is the current alphabet spelling. Andrei, or Andrew, son of František Schober, tenant from Vestenkov, number 54, and his wife Eva, daughter of Martin Schuck, renter from Vestenkov, number 34. The bride's name is Anna Storkota, daughter of deceased Michael Storkota. I know that he is deceased because of the cross before his name. He is a farmhand from Putzlitz, number 6, and renter from Vestenkov, number 40, and his wife, Maria, daughter of Jiří or George Underle, farmhand from Vestenkov, number 40, district of Horshovsky Tin. And this now gives you enough information to advance a generation by finding František's and Eva's birth record, and the same with the bride's parents. This is a continuation of the record on the next page. First column is religion, either Catholic or not Catholic. Next is the age of the groom and bride, and a column to indicate if they were single or widowed. The witness area includes their signature, status or occupation, village, and house number. If they could not read or write, they simply placed 3 X's by their name. The last column included the Catholic church banns and when they were announced in church. In these early times, it was difficult to know whether a person had been previously married or not. The banns were an announcement of an intended marriage, naming the persons to be married. They were read at 3 different masses. So here we have both groom and bride are Catholic. Andrei was 26 years and 2 months. Anna was 23 and 8 months. This is important information if the birth record has not been found yet. They were both single, unmarried. The witnesses were Jiří Seifert and Steinbach. There is also a method for locating all the record books for Pilsen parish. On the main page of the Pilsen archive, select Matriki to go directly to the church record books section. The first in the list is for the evangelical or Protestant parishes. The second in the list is for the Catholic or Catholic parishes. The rest deal with later years. Click on the second one for Catholic records. On the top line, select the S, and from this page, select Stankov. This is a listing of all birth, marriage, and death books available for the Stankov parish. First on the page is a general description of the parish, followed by the parish books that are not in the Pilsen archive, but in the local municipal office. Continuing to scroll down the page is the start of the listing of the record books available. There are 45 different books available for the Stunkov parish. Now let's look at a death record from the Zamość archives. Kniha Zemlnych means Book of Deaths, abbreviated usually by a capital Z, or in the Pilsen archive by lowercase plus sign. Let's suppose that we have a relative in the Zamość archives that had a child that died. We know the village is Sobonov, the parish Soboty, and the date of the death is 9 Czerwona, June 1881. The person is a child, Josef Ondracek. The Zamość archive is the most difficult archive to use. It is not set up very efficiently. We will try and explain it the best that we can. However, you may want to look at additional websites that appear when you search for Zamość on Google for additional instructions. This is the opening page for the Zamość archive. Select the first link to open a large PDF that lists all of the parish books available in the Zamość archives. Zamość is the only archive that does not have the record books available to view directly on the web. This PDF contains hyperlinks that allow one to download the entire record book in a zip file to your computer. The last time the PDF was updated was 2020. Keep checking this page for future updates. In the PDF, any record books that have been digitized will have a hyperlink that will download the book to your computer. If you don't wish to keep the book on your computer, delete it and download the book again when needed. Do a Control F or Command F on Apple to bring up a search box and type in the name of the village. Arrow down to the Catholic parish Soboty that has the record book for the village Sobonov. Choose the hyperlink to download the images for the record book for a death in 1881 in Sobonov. This book, 2977, contains birth, marriage, and death records for the years 1784 to 1887 for the village of Sobonov. The number 9010 is a temporary number, so when you document this, make sure that you use the sign 2977 number, which is the number of the book that won't change. This is what the book looks like when it's downloaded to your computer. Since this book contains births, marriages, and deaths, you need to click around on images until you find the death listings. Then find the year 1881, and finally search for the month Czerwona. And here's our record. The column headings are year, month, and day of the death and funeral, house number, name of deceased. Next are the narrow columns, religion, male, and female. The age is given in years, months, and days. Finally, the cause of death. For this record, the date of death was 9 Czerwona, June 1881, and the funeral 11 Czerwona. The house number is 21. Josef Ondracek, illegitimate son of Marie Ondraczkova, from Sobonov number 21. Nemanjelski literally means without a husband. Buried by Anton Zanacek, parson. Joseph was Catholic and male. He died at the age of 1 year, 1 month, and 10 days. Cause of death was Bosutnik, infantile convulsions. The number 32 refers to a survey card for Joseph's death, which the priest uses to copy the information in the church record. So now we have explored 3 different archives and a birth, marriage, and death record. Once you have found the records, once you've found a record, celebrate. And then make sure that you save the direct link from the archive on your genealogy software. Different archives have different ways to do this. This is an example of what that would look like. To be absolutely safe, write down the name of the archive, parish and village name, archive book number, new page number, and folio number. An example would be Prague Archive, Ulhurske Janovice, Munchice, book number 12, page 123, folio 121. When looking for records, become a detective. Begin with what you know and move to the unknown. Be patient. Never give up. Seek help if you need it. There will be a number of helpful links in the handout. Keep detailed records. And if you hit a brick wall, try a different path. Facebook has a number of Czech and Slovak genealogy groups that are very helpful. You can learn a lot by just following the conversations. In addition, you can ask for help, provide what you know, and people will answer your question. Links for these groups will be in the handout. Another place you can seek help is our website, sokolmilwaukee.org. We have a genealogy group that meets about 4 times a year. If you have a question, you can also contact us through the contact page. We would also like you to consider joining our organization. Our mission statement is to celebrate Czech Slovak culture through education and physical fitness since 1868. Each year, we offer a Czech dinner in February and participate in the International Holiday Folk Fair in Milwaukee on the 3rd weekend of November. We offer baking opportunities, educational programs, a very informative website, and quarterly newsletters. Again, our website is sokolmilwaukee.org. Thank you so much for being patient and listening to our presentation. Let's see if you have any questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Anne, Susan, and Don. That was a wonderful presentation and such a great overview of several of those really great resources. It makes me wish I had Czech ancestors, but unfortunately I haven't uncovered any yet. We didn't have any questions quite yet, but we'll wait a second here and see if any come in. There are quite a few people who were excited that you guys were doing this program and said it couldn't have come at a better time. And some people shared in the chat that they found relatives living in an ancestral home when they visited in 2011. So that's really cool. A great story to share. Excellent handout and presentation, someone said. And yes, the slides are part of the handout, and I've posted the link and I'll post the link again to the handout as well. Someone says on the death record, what was the language that was in that death record that you shared?
All the languages on those death records were Czech. However, some death records would have German or Latin.
And our next question was, assuming finding births, baptisms, and death in the Pilsen archives, would follow finding the marriages? So assuming you can find births, baptism, and deaths, would you also be able to find marriages at the archive? I think that's what they're asking.
Which archive was that again? Could you repeat that?
Is it Pilsen, Plzen?
Yes.
Do they have
would
marriages
also
on that
have
one?
Marriage and death records at
Okay.
each of the archives, yes.
Someone said they have been researching the Traban archives and they have seigneurial records. They seem to be a mini census. What are they exactly? Are you familiar with those record types?
Yes, the seigneurial records are actually part of the manor records. Back in Bohemia, all the various villages were under the governorship or actually owned by a manor. And so those seigneurial books are records from the manor itself. And so there'll be, there's various types of those books. It could be transfer of the houses from person to person. It could also be the various people living in the village in the various houses had to pay like taxes to the manor. And so those books could be a record of what they collected from the people each year. So there are various books.
And you would find those on the archive websites like you guys showed us with the birth, marriage, and death?
Yes, and there's valuable information there too, because it will show usually their birth date and birth year, which if you can't go back any further in the other records, it gives you another step back.
Right.
When they
Our next, go ahead.
Information online, they started with their birth, marriage, and death records. And now that most of those things have been digitalized and are available at the archives, they're starting to digitalize some of the other books that they have. And so some of the archives, you will find those manor books, sometimes land record books, may be also located in the archive. But I will just mention a suggestion here. Say you're getting along in your research and you're looking for land records, and you're looking, say, in the Treven archive, and you know that land record books are online, but you're not finding your manor land records. Well, some of the nobles that owned the manors had land on in various places in old Bohemia, and say they had some land in northern Bohemia and in southern Bohemia, but they might have had like one area that was their main home, and they might have kept all their records there. So you might have family in Treven, but the records aren't there. They may be in an archive in North. And so there's some websites starting to come where you can search for where those manor records are. But that's a little bit more advanced. So I just offer that as just a suggestion.
Well, thanks for that helpful
Are there
tip.
any other questions?
Yes. So someone said on her great uncle's death in Poland, it said that he was born in 1894 in, I have no clue how to pronounce that. Any idea where it is now? So like, do you have a resource that would say where a place in Poland is in relation to today's boundaries, basically?
That first website we sent you to, Gen Team, it not only has where the villages are currently, like in the Czech Republic, it also covers other parts of Europe, including some of those Polish areas. And in European history, on the eastern side of what's now the Czech Republic, some of those lands were Czech lands in the past. And then as the years went on, some of those lands became Polish lands. And so sometimes you can find records for those border villages in either of the two countries' archives because of the changing political lines over the years. And so if you have a specific village, if you would go to Gen Team and put that village in, it should tell you where the records are for that particular village. On the contact page of Sokol Milwaukee, you're welcome to contact us directly with some specific questions that we would try to answer for you. Sometimes it's kind of hard to answer the question without doing a little exploration ourselves to find where the answers may be.
Mm-hmm. All right, our next question was wondering if you have English translations for the headings on the registers that were written in German, or do you have resources that they could use for that?
In the handout, we gave links to where you can find the translations of those common words, both in Latin, German, and in Czech. The newer records, when you're researching in the Czech Republic, you'll find are in the Czech language. As you get back to like the 1850s and later, those records are often in the German language because what's now the Czech Republic, going back in history, it used to be Czechoslovakia. Before that, it was Bohemia. And Bohemia was under Austria and the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And their government was all in German. And so they required the birth, marriage, and death records to be recorded in German. And that's why these church records are so important for us as genealogists, because the Austrian government mandated that the Catholic Church records were the official records of the Austrian government. And so when we're doing research, that's why they've been preserved and available to us, because they were considered the official government records, even though they are church records. And just as a little aside, I'll throw in, if your families were Protestant in the early part of the 1800s, all the Protestant records were also noted in the birth, marriage, and death records of the Catholic Church, because they were the official place of where to record those. And why was the Austrian government interested in this? And for two main reasons. One, they wanted to collect taxes, so they needed to know the population. And two, they needed to know specifically the male population and where it was for their military, because with all their wars, as they went across the country, they would know how many men were in each of the villages that they could require to join them in their military efforts.
Great.
Oh, and I just did, I got a little sidetracked there.
It's okay.
And when you go back further into the 1700s and the 1600s, then you will see that a lot of the records were all in Latin, because that was the language of the Catholic Church at that time.
Yeah. Well,
And
thank you.
And it's real fun when you find the records that are a mix of Latin, Czech, and German.
Yes. You really got to put your detective hat on and try to decipher it. And not only trying to read a different language, but the handwriting in that different language is really fun. All All right, our next question, the person says they have 3 different spellings for a town name, one with an O, one with an A, one with an E. Do you have any advice on how to determine which one's the right spelling?
Gen Team would help with that. It would have the official name in Czech and in German.
If it's the last letter, that would be a matter of the how the word is used in the sentence. So that's kind of an indication of that too.
Okay. Someone's wondering, how do you, like on Family Search, how would you read which is the city, which is the village, or like, is there like a region? So she has an example, and I can not speak Czech at all or pronounce these words, but I'm gonna try. Bozajev, like, is that a city, or is that a village, or is that a region?
Can you spell it?
Bozejov.
I would say that's a village.
That
Village.
sounds like a village.
Yeah. So I think usually with Family Search, they always list that city or village first, and then it's like kind of the bigger maybe area around it, and then like the region, and then the country. I think that's usually how Family Search lists their locations.
Why we brought up Family Search? Currently, well, we mentioned the various archives where the records are, but Family Search is also collecting records to put on their website. And Family Search does have a lot of records from the Czech Republic, especially from the Zamrus archive, but they do not have the records from all of the Czech Republic. And the Zamrus archive was the one where we showed you there was that PDF, and you had to go through it to find your village, and then you had to download all those books to look at on your computer itself. Well, since many of the villages' books have been digitalized and are becoming available on the Family Search website, a lot of people like to go to Family Search then to look at those books because you don't have to download them.
Sure.
But because this was an introduction to beginning Czech genealogy, we did not demonstrate how to do that. But since you're on the Family Search website already, just want to make you aware that there may be more things available if you go directly to the archives than what you're finding currently on Family Search.
Yeah, great tip. Thank you. Someone said in the chat that this was incredibly informative, and the handout is great, and I agree. Our next question was that the person has not found any ties back to villages. Are there any hints in United States records that they might be able to find where the village is, where their family is from? They said that they've done census records, marriage, and obituary research so far. And she said the family she's researching is from Pilsen, Kansas. So do you have any tips on what US records might link back to villages back home?
Well, since you've canvassed already the census records, you said you found some marriage records. They could be the civil records, you know, held by the courthouses and stuff here, or you could go, if they got married in a church, to find those church records. Not always, but sometimes in the church records, you might have a better chance of finding the village that they came from, or possibly more information. The civil record might just have the name of the bride and the groom. But if you go back to the church records for that marriage, you might find the name of the parents, and you might be lucky enough to find the village. When you're looking for a village and you know it hasn't come down through family lore, you haven't been able to find the name of the village, say naturalization records, we start expanding the search by possibly looking at the passenger ship record and see, gee, did they happen to be traveling with other people? And if you go up and down the list a little bit and say, hey, you know, that name looks familiar, you know, that was in the same, you know, town here in the United States that my family was, you might want to look to see if someone's done research on that family, because oftentimes the families immigrated together and settled together. There's a book on the internet by Sabata that has a lot of the villages where the people that settled in Kansas and Nebraska. And you might find the name of the village, you might find the name of your ancestor in that book.
A follow-up to one of our earlier questions about finding marriages in that Pilsen archive, would you follow the same procedures to find the births, deaths, etc., as you did in the marriages that you showed on that website?
In the demonstration for the Pilsen archive, when we were trying to go directly to the book needed, we checked down the list that that said the old word "aten." Thank you, Anne, for marriage. If you're looking for birth, you would check the N word for birth, or the Z word for deaths. Or later on, we had, if you wanted to go to that church book directly, we showed how to do it. And then there would be a list of all the books. In the demonstration, we had said there were 45 books for that church. And if you just look at the columns, it would say what books had the birth records, what had the marriage records, what had the death records. And then you would go to the appropriate book to look.
All right. Someone again says, thank you for the excellent presentation. They're wondering if there's any census records available for Pilsen.
Yes. If you go to the main page of the Pilsen archive, there is like there's a box you can check. But for that particular archive, it's helpful if you're looking at it from the Chrome browser. You can right-click and translate everything to English, and then one of those little boxes will pop up and say census. And then there's a listing. It's not by village, but it's by like section of that Pilsen area. And if you're not sure, just try clicking around on some of the different sections. And then it'll have a list of the villages that are currently digitalized for that section. A lot of the census records survived, but the farther north you get into the Pilsen archive, I'm finding a lot of those census records either didn't survive or they might have been hidden away a little bit. And as they're finding some of these records, they might be going online. So not everything is online yet. So if you don't find it the first time, check back.
Yeah, definitely. Our next question says, my ancestor came to the United States about 1868. Where did they likely depart from? And then she said she's thinking maybe Taban Sezki, I know I'm not pronouncing that right, but hopefully Anne knows what I'm talking about. She seems to know how to pronounce stuff.
They most commonly either went from the Bremen port or the Hamburg port in Germany. Now, there are exceptions to that, but those were the two most common routes. And coming into the United States, the two most common arrival ports were Baltimore and New York. A lot of the early Czechs coming in the 1850s might have come down to going to Texas and might have gone to the southern ports of Galveston. And if you happen to find your passenger ship list in the port of New York or Baltimore, it will say on the ship record where that ship departed from. And so you would know if they left from Hamburg or from Bremen.
Great. Someone said on slide 25, the top name was very similar to my great-grandmother's line, Vakazki. I think the name was Blazkava on the record we looked at today. Could that be related, or is it a completely different surname?
I don't have the numbers. Okay, we're getting.
Sure.
We're going to slide 25.
Okay, and then repeat what the.
They said their great-grandmother's name was Vaskovsky, Vaskovsky. Is that similar to the name on the record that was on slide 25, which is Vlaskova?
Slide number 25 has village names, so I'm not sure.
It's hard to answer.
I can't scroll down to that one there.
Yeah, slide 25 is just showing a listing of the record book from the archive. And it sounds like she was looking at an actual document that we were demonstrating, or, you know, an actual record. And so we're not sure offhand which slide that was.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe sure to type in the chat in a minute and we'll find out and get a little bit more clarifying if what slide it was. But let's move on to the next question. So someone is wondering if there's any way to find exactly where a village was that no longer exists.
Yes, and Jen team is very helpful with it, that first website. When you're saying about villages that don't exist, my mind right away goes to like Western Bohemia. In the history of the Czech Republic, during the 1930s, Germany claimed a lot of the western portion of what was then Czechoslovakia as theirs. And then after World War II, Czechoslovakia had those lands returned to them. But the inhabitants that were in the western part of what was then Czechoslovakia, a lot of their culture and nationality was German. They spoke German at home, and after the war, it was very common, not only in what was then Czechoslovakia, but all over Europe, that the German-speaking people were expelled from their lands and sent back to Germany. So you'll find many people, as you do in your genealogy, that, you know, they'll say, well, I was from Germany, I was from Germany. But you will find that when you're locating the villages, it might have been in Poland, it might have been in what's now the Czech Republic. And so I'm just guessing that maybe some of the villages that might have disappeared might have been in that western part of what's now the Czech Republic. And what happened after the war, the German people were expelled from that area, and a lot of the border villages were purposely destroyed by the Czech government to make a little wider border area that there would be a safety zone. Now, through the rest of what's now the Czech Republic, there may be some environmental projects that were done, say creating a dam where they would have to abandon the village, and then the village was flooded and is no longer on the map. So going to Gen Team, I believe it also gives like the GPS coordinates of where that village that you're looking for might have been.
And it's important to remember that all villages had two names, a German name and a Czech name. So did the village actually disappear, or is it now known by a Czech name?
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. Good
In the
point to make.
1800s, the villages were, many of them were going only by their German name. And so when the immigrants came here, they will give a German name for the village that they came from. So now here it is 100 years later, and we're looking at a current map and we can't find the name of that village. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean the village is gone, but those German villages are now going by a Czech name.
Mhm.
So again, in Gen Team, if you search by the name you know, which may be a German name for the village, it will give you what the current name for that village is.
All right, going back to that last question on slide 25, she said the slide number was actually number 13. So if we could pull up slide 13 and take a look. She said the top name was the one she was thinking was similar or maybe the same as Vakovsky.
Was Bakovsky happen to be from the Chicago area?
So spell Vakovsky.
Vaskovsky. And she said, yes, Chicago area.
I think that first name is actually a VL name. So
yeah, so she was wondering, was it similar or just completely different last name?
Completely different.
Okay. All right. Someone was wondering, how might you learn enough Czech and German to understand records or some of what you showed us today?
Well, I speak some Czech, and so that's been very helpful for me. Susan speaks no Czech. Well, she's trying, she's taking Czech class, but she is able to get through those records and figure it all out just through experience and learning. And so it is possible for a non-speaker to figure it out.
And when you first look at the records, you'll quickly be able to figure out the 12 months of the year. And your eye will start to pick out your family name, your last name, the first names, the name of the village. All the other stuff that's written in there will just kind of blur. But you can still do genealogy, just picking out those important, the important words.
Sure.
As you go on with your genealogy and you're looking at more and more records, some of those other words will start to become familiar with you. And it's at that point when you're starting to read the little words like son of, daughter of, what their different occupations may be, just through experience looking at more records. When you realize you're starting to decipher more of the letters and pick out some of the words, then it may be important to you to go back and review some of the records you've already found. And then you realize just from working with the records that you're able to get more information out of them. When you're first starting out, some of it can be extremely confusing. And we find that those online Facebook groups are extremely helpful. many people will say, you know, I found a record and I'm so curious what the rest of the record says. You know, I can pick out things. And the Facebook groups are very appreciative and more willing to help people if they say, okay, I found this record. This is what I understand. Can you help me with the rest? If someone goes in and just says, I found this record, can you tell me what it is? You won't find too many people that'll take the time. But once they understand that you're really trying to learn how to read the records, and that you, like I said, tell them what you know, a lot of times people will chip in and help you more. And people are always writing different blogs and, you know, putting together different helpful handouts and stuff. They might point you in a direction to give you more help specifically for what you're working on.
Yeah, I second the Facebook groups. They've definitely helped. Like, I have a lot of German ancestors and I don't read German. So, you know, you try to make out what you can and use Google Translate or German to English dictionaries and see what you can figure out, and then ask for help on the rest. And people are really usually very helpful in understanding that, you know, we don't speak the language that record's written in, and they help us out as much as they can. So. Someone also posted in the chat, they're wondering if they could send the gray hair lady to San Antonio to translate for them. So sounds like you have a gig if you want it. Our next question was, how old were boys drafted into the military usually in Czech? And how long was their service?
How long the service was depends upon the year. When you get back to the 1800s, you were in the military, period. They could call you up at any time and you were free to go home if they didn't need you for a current war. But by the time it got into the 1800s itself, they had to sign up for, or they were signed up for, like 10 to 15 years. I think it's about 12 years. And so the boys were maybe about 20 years old. So till about 30 or 32, they were in the military. And it depended if there was a war going on, how active it was. And so at first they would be sent away to, you know, training camps. Then they could go home. But you may have noticed in a lot of the records, the males seem to be a little older before they get married. And the reason for this was when they were in the military, you know, and say they're 22 years old, they couldn't just decide to marry their sweetheart next door and get married. They had to have permission from their military leader. And if they did not give them permission, if they had served long enough, if they weren't of the right rank, they could not legally get married, which leads me to the next thing. Young men, if they have to wait 10 years to marry their sweetheart, don't necessarily wait that long to start their families. And so you may be a little shocked when you're looking at records and find out, you know, great-great-great-grandma and grandpa had, you know, 3 kids and then they got married. You know, what was stopping them? Well, the most common answer is they could not legally get married because he was in the military. And then once they were married, you may see noted on the record that all the children prior to the marriage were legitimized because of the marriage. Around the 1860s, they didn't have to serve quite as long in the military, but there were a lot of wars happening in Europe. And so you'll find that a lot of young men might have come here to the United States because of those wars. So There are some military records online. Family Search has some available, but
That's more advanced.
that's more advanced. So
Well, thank you. That was a very helpful answer. Someone's wondering if there's tutorials available for navigating the other regional Czech archives that you guys didn't cover today.
what we did is in the handouts, we gave you a link directly to each of the archives, but we also, after that, posted a couple of helpful hints. There's a link that goes directly to the organization CGSI, Czechoslovak Genealogical Society International. They have some good tutorials on how to do research in each of the archives. We also put a link to Family Search. We gave you a general link to a link in Family Search, which has how to do a lot of Czech research. And on that link, it will have, if you want to research in the archives, that'll bring you to a page which lists all the different archives. And if you click on either of them, it will be helpful things of how to search in that specific archive. It was in the Czech Republic. If you started doing research, say back in the 70s or 80s, you couldn't get any information from the Czech Republic unless you wrote to the embassy, and then it might take a year before you got an answer. And during that same period of time, Family Search was going to various countries like Germany and Poland, and they were allowing them to microfilm their records. The Czech Republic was a closed door. It would not allow any of their records to be microfilmed. And so it was really a surprise to people doing research in that area when the individual archives in the Czech Republic started to digitalize that and post it on the internet for people to be able to access it. And at that time, there was not a standard. Each archive decided to digitalize it and share it independently, the way they wanted to do it. And so that's why there's not a standard that you can just say, go to the national archives and then go down to the different regional archives and it all works the same. No, they're all independent and are set up completely different. And so it's a challenge, but
and there are some similarities too. So
yeah, great. It's nice that you mentioned the CGSI too, because someone asked about the CGSI conference for 2023 and they said, will Milwaukee be the location? And I looked at the website and it says Milwaukee, so that's exciting for us Wisconsinites.
Yes, it will be. It will be in Milwaukee because we're local. We're on the planning committee for some of the activities. And just throwing in a little plug, Anne is an excellent baker, and there's going to be a couple of workshops on how to make those little Czech yummies. And so we're looking forward to that. I believe it's like the 17th to 21st of October in 23. It'll be in person at the, it'll be an in-person conference, as it has been in past years. The conference in 21 was, because of COVID, was completely online. And so it will be in person again. There will be tours of the Czech, German, Bohemian, Slovak ethnic settlements in the Milwaukee area. And there will be tours of the Racine Czech settlement areas also. So we're looking forward.
Yep, and some of the speakers include genealogists from the Czech Republic also.
Wow, sounds like a great opportunity for people to learn more if they're able to attend. I was wondering, are the archives delineated by current Czech-Slovak boundaries or the country at the date they were created, like the time the record was created?
They're divided by what's current in the Czech Republic now.
All right. Our next question, how likely would it be for a cottager or a serf from Český Budějovice to have descendants in an area near Prague? So basically, is that close or not really?
Not extremely close, no. České Budějovice, where Budvar beer comes from, the original Budweiser, is very close to the Austrian border.
The next question, I have found through my DNA that my great-grandfather has Czech ancestry. Is it possible just to do a surname search on those archive websites, or do you really have to kind of know what date you're looking for or what area you're looking for?
That's kind of a yes and no answer. Like if you go to family search, you can look at some of the records directly, or if you're lucky, some of those records might be indexed. So if you put in a name, it might bring up a record. You know, as time goes on, more and more of those records will be indexed. So by doing a search, like the Traban archive is starting to have people index some of the records. And so you might be able to put in a last name there and some records might pop up, but they're just starting to index from the records they already have. It's like years ago when we did census research, we had to look at the microfilms and go through, you know, each of the towns and stuff. But now, you know, you can go to Family Search or Ancestry and put in a name and it'll tell you all around the nation where that name is. So
yeah,
given time, but currently you might get lucky or you might have to do old-fashioned searching to find it.
yeah.
There's a book that's currently online that does say currently in the Czech Republic where that particular name is prominent. And so that might help you in narrowing like an area where this name is common, where it might have come from.
Do you have the name of that book?
It's a website, isn't it?
There is a website.
Up is a website also.
Is it Gdesma? I think it might be KDEJSEM.CZ.
All right, I'll put that into the chat. And then some people asked if I'd submit the chat when I send out that follow-up email, and I definitely will. So, because there's lots of great information in the chat that people have been putting in. So hopefully people can look through that and see.
I will offer some of these specific questions. It's kind of hard to answer when we can't, you know, get on our computer and, you know, go to that exact site. And so, you know, we will answer if you send a direct message to contact at the Sokol Milwaukee webpage. And, you know, sometimes we do meet in small, just genealogy interest group over Zoom and have a small session where we can demonstrate and help each other one-on-one. Sometimes it's easier to show than to just tell.
We did find that website, and that is what it is.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
And someone asked if you could put, oh, go ahead.
if we can put it in the chat, at that website, to do an exact search, you have to put in all the little Czech characters. But if you press on, like, what would be the first name or the last name, it'll bring up a list of letters. So if you're looking for something that starts with the letter S, if you go to that, you can scroll down the list of names, and then you can see a lot of the names that are in there that that have those little markings or not. If you just use, English letters with no marks, you might not get as many hits, as many results.
Yes, thank you for putting that in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone asked a follow-up to that question before about the Nebraska-Kansas book that you were talking about. Is it the Nebraska-Kansas Czech Settlers 1891 to 1895 book, or is that a different one that you were talking about before?
Is the author Margie Sobotka?
Yes.
That's it.
Perfect. Let's see our next question. Some of these are a little bit more, specific that, I think people should follow up with you guys on, like asking about specific areas and where they're located and things like that. I can't pronounce these names and it's hard to spell them out and things like that. And I'm sure off the top of your guys' head, you probably don't know, okay, where is that without looking it up too. So if we don't get your question today, definitely follow up via email. Their contact information is in that handout. So to ask your kind of more specific questions. But here's a more general one. I'm wondering, is there a way to find a village if it does not come up in a gazetteer or on Gen Team?
Would the family search gazetteer be any different?
Yeah, that has happened. It basically means that your village name may be close, but it's not the exact spelling. It may be phonetical, that it sounds similar. And so really more exploring would be needed to be done to find the name of that village.
The Facebook groups would be helpful on that also.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone was wondering if there was a way to find exactly where a village was that no longer exists anymore. So someone said Alt-Richterwald in South Bohemia. They were told by one person it was near Pekna, and by someone else it was near Kristanov. So they don't know which is which or where exactly this Alt-Richterwald in South Bohemia would have been.
And it is very common going to Gen Team that there might be multiple names of the same village in different areas of the Czech Republic. And so then you have to explore each of the areas to see, if your family names were in either of those areas. And so that's how, if you have two possibilities, you would have to go into some records and see if the family names were associated with which of those two villages. And, then doing further research. A lot of those abandoned villages, you may be able to find more information about them.
All right, and the next one, they said that their family lived in Vikovich, Moravia, and came to Appleton in 1865. They left daughters behind there, but they don't know which denomination, where to look for parish records because the family split between Catholic and Protestant when they were here in Wisconsin. So any idea of what denomination they should look for back in the Czech?
I would start first with Catholic records because the period of time that they came, a lot, even if they were Protestant, their records would still be in the Catholic Church. And then, if you know the exact village where they came from, you could see if there were also Protestant churches in that area, and then you could look at that.
The fact that the family was part Catholic and part Protestant here, though, would indicate they were probably Catholic there and being forced to be Catholic.
Sure. All right, those pretty much all of our questions. We had a couple other ones that were a little bit more specific. Like I said, that I suggest those people follow up with you guys via email because they're a little bit too, specific that probably from the top of your heads, you wouldn't know like where certain things are, things like that. So, unless anybody else has any last minute questions, I just want to again thank you guys so much for your knowledge and expertise. It was wonderful and wonderful presentation, wonderful handout, and encourage everyone to come to our next Find Your Ancestor session, October 8th. It's going to be about identifying and interpreting historic photos. So we hope to see you then, and lots of comments in the chat about how wonderful this webinar was, and thanking you guys again for your time and expertise. So yeah.
Thank you from Susan, Ann, and Don for having us, for allowing us to present, and for the people attending. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone, and have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next, hopefully. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.